this thing?
What's the matter with this thing? What's all that churning and bubbling? You call that a radar screen?
No, sir. We call it Mr. Coffee.
Fasten your seatbelts because Spaceballs is more than a parody. It's controlled chaos behind the scenes. This movie didn't just mock Star Wars, it pushed limits, broke rules, and somehow got away with it. From risky jokes that almost didn't make the cut to moments that were never supposed to happen, everything about it feels unpredictable. And one decision made before filming even started quietly shaped the entire movie in a way most people miss. Once you notice it, you can't unsee it. The yogurt scene nightmare. Filming the yogurt gag turned into one of the messiest days on the set of Spaceballs. What looked like a quick joke on screen took hours to get right. The thick mixture wasn't just plain yogurt. It was a heavy blend made to look funny on camera. But it quickly became a problem once filming began. For Daphne Zuniga, the experience was far from pleasant. Each take meant falling into the same sticky mess again and again. The longer they filmed, the worse it got. The mixture turned thicker, colder, and harder to clean off between shots. The set developed an overpowering odor, which became impossible for everyone to overlook by the day. Zuniga later said it felt like standing inside a gym locker filled with expired food. The material stayed attached to costumes and hair while spreading its presence throughout the space, which created increasing discomfort for every reset that followed. Without showing any signs of difficulty, she completed the scene according to its required specifications. The final cut shows a brief joke, yet the filming process required extensive effort, which tested the entire team until they reached their breaking point. That was rough, but the next moment flips everything in a way you won't expect. The real stunt doubles joke. One of the funniest moments in Spaceballs comes from a line that sounds simple but hits perfectly. When the guards say, "Those aren't them, they're their stunt doubles," it feels like a quick throwaway joke. But the scene works because what you see on screen is exactly what the line is talking about. The people standing there are not the main actors. They are real professional stunt doubles, dressed to look like them. The wigs are clearly off, the mustaches look fake, and the whole setup feels just wrong enough to be funny. That was the point. The joke was built to look obvious, not convincing. The audience's reaction to the performance created a better experience. The audience during early screenings laughed so hard that they blocked all sounds beyond the next lines. The joke delivered a stronger impact than the performers planned because it resulted in one of the film's most intense laugh moments. The stunt performers received a unique opportunity through this achievement. The performers who executed the joke became its central element instead of remaining in the background. The doubles appeared in their full identity for the first time. The moment belonged to them because they executed the punchline. Permission before the parody. Before a single scene was filmed, Mel Brooks knew he had to be careful. Spaceballs was clearly poking fun at Star Wars, and that meant dealing with its creator, George Lucas. Instead of risking a legal fight, Brooks reached out directly and asked for permission to make the parody. Lucas agreed, but he had one important rule. He did not want any official merchandise tied to the film. That meant no toys, no branded products, and nothing that could compete with the massive Star Wars merchandise machine. Brooks accepted the condition, knowing it was the only way to move forward. The film itself contains multiple jokes, which explain its lack of available merchandise through invented products such as Spaceballs, the T-shirt, and Spaceballs, the flamethrower. The film contains several moments that became the most frequently quoted sections of the movie. The jokes became more lasting in people's minds than authentic products because of the ban, which created unusual circumstances. The legal requirement that started the film process developed into a fundamental component of the movie. The movie demonstrated that filmmakers can achieve success through proper management of restrictions, which results in comedy success. The no merchandise rule twist. When Spaceballs got the green light, one rule stood above the rest. George Lucas allowed the parody, but he blocked all official merchandise. No toys, no branded items, nothing that could step into the same market as Star Wars. It was a strict condition, and it shaped the film in an unexpected way. Instead of avoiding the topic, Mel Brooks leaned straight into it. He turned the restriction into a running joke that appears throughout the movie. Scenes openly advertise fake products like Spaceballs, the t-shirt, and Spaceballs, the lunchbox, pushing the idea as far as it could go. The movie starts with one memorable moment, which leads into its first introduction of Spaceballs, the flamethrower. The movie breaks the fourth wall to show how products receive equal treatment in movies that create their storylines. The joke works because it feels honest and exaggerated at the same time. The film's primary comedic element emerged through its rule that restricted the movie content. The fake merchandise became more memorable than the real products from other films. The system converted a legal boundary into a joke that people continue to remember after many years. Dark Helmet was pure improv. One of the biggest reasons Dark Helmet stands out in Spaceballs is how natural his comedy feels. That's because much of it wasn't tightly scripted. Rick Moranis was given the freedom to play with the character, and he took full advantage of it during filming. The voice, the whining, and the sudden outbursts were not carefully planned line by line. Moranis treated the role like a child throwing a tantrum, mixing anger with humor in a way that felt unpredictable. That energy made Dark Helmet more than just a parody. He became a character people remembered on his own. The first approach created a specific challenge that existed throughout the entire filming process. The crew members experienced multiple instances when they found it difficult to maintain their serious expressions. The camera operators and staff members needed to maintain their concentration because Moranis performed his lines in different ways during each filming session. The audience displayed authentic reactions that remained hidden from view. The unlimited creative freedom enabled the filmmakers to develop their most humorous film scenes. Moranis maintained fresh performances because he avoided delivering his lines through identical methods, which created authentic moments. The character of Dark Helmet received a wild personality, which established an ideal match between his character and the film's overall atmosphere. Budget cuts made it funnier. At one point, Spaceballs was meant to look much bigger. Early plans included larger space battles and more detailed effects. But as production moved forward, the budget began to tighten. Instead of trying to hide it, Mel Brooks made a smart choice. He leaned into the limits and turned them into part of the joke. You can see it in the ships right away. Some models look simple, almost like toys, and that is not by accident. Rather than building perfect illusions, the film plays with the idea that everything is just a bit off. That slight roughness adds to the humor instead of breaking it. The action scenes use the same technique that directors established. Multiple scenes between both climaxes and battle sequences alternate between rapid execution and exaggerated performance. The film moves fast, often choosing a joke over realism. The film maintains its cheerful atmosphere because it avoids using costly special effects, which would not suit its visual style. The smaller budget defined all aspects of the film because it determined all creative decisions which brought about its comedic content. The film's budget restrictions led to creative solutions that enhanced the comic elements of the movie. The element that should have restricted the film actually created one of the reasons that people still find enjoyment in the movie today. The Winnebago was real. One of the strangest ships in Spaceballs is not a spaceship at all. It is a Winnebago, the kind of vehicle people use for road trips. Instead of building a sleek sci-fi craft, Mel Brooks chose something familiar and turned it into a joke that fits the film's tone. The vehicle used for filming was a real RV. It was modified with large wings and extra parts to give it a space-ready look. For the exterior shots, it was filmed driving on actual roads before effects were added later. That grounded the scene in something real, even if the idea itself was completely ridiculous. The production team created an interior scene through the construction of a vehicle replica set. The design maintained its authentic camper appearance, which enhanced the comedic effect. The crew navigates a space that resembles a budget road trip experience instead of a modern cockpit design. The film establishes its artistic direction through this selection. The design does not attempt to challenge established serious science fiction designs. The design creates a mocking effect through its complete departure from established design standards. The ship achieves memorability because it presents an unusual appearance rather than its actual aesthetic value. The dot matrix was two people. One of the most memorable characters in Spaceballs is Dot Matrix, the golden robot with a sharp attitude. What makes her performance unique is that it did not come from just one person. The character was brought to life through a mix of physical acting and voice work. The body of Dot Matrix was performed by a mime inside the suit. Every movement had to be controlled and expressive, even without visible facial features. Walking, turning, and reacting all had to feel natural while wearing a heavy costume that limited movement. Joan Rivers provided the voice for the character. Through her performance, the character came to life because she portrayed an energetic and sarcastic person who moved rapidly. The lines were recorded separately and added later, matching her voice to the mime's actions. The two performers achieved a more fascinating result because they did not work together during their filming process. The two actors performed separately, but their work created a result that appears to be continuous. The character developed through this process because her physical movement matched her powerful vocal performance to create an exceptional show. Combing the desert literally. One of the most famous jokes in Spaceballs comes from a simple idea taken to the extreme. The scene shows troops searching the desert, but instead of using advanced tools, they use giant combs. It turns a basic search into something completely ridiculous. And that is exactly why it works. The idea came from constant pressure to add more visual gags. Instead of subtle humor, the response was to go as literal as possible. If someone says, "comb the desert," then the film shows people actually doing it. That straightforward approach made the joke easy to understand and hard to forget. Filming the scene brought various challenges to the production. The production team needed to repair an oversized comb that had broken during filming because they required it for their next scene. The scene maintained its energy because the actors remained dedicated to their ridiculous setup despite the existing problem. The joke developed into the most frequently quoted scene throughout the entire film. The statement demonstrates how people who interpret a statement literally will discover that it leads to greater things. The scene achieves its goals through direct presentation because it uses visual elements and extreme content. Jokes nearly failed censorship. During editing, Spaceballs ran into trouble with censors. The humor often leaned into double meanings and bold lines that pushed what was allowed at the time. Some scenes were flagged, and there was real concern that parts of the film might have to be removed. Mel Brooks did not want to water down the jokes. He believed the humor worked because it stayed sharp and a little risky. Instead of cutting everything, he worked around the limits, adjusting timing and delivery while keeping the meaning clear. The joke about Princess Vespa created doubt because it contained negative effects, which produced two results. The statement managed to attract attention through its clear delivery, yet it escaped detection because of its specific way of presentation. The film reached its most dangerous point because of those situations, which showed its attempt to achieve extreme limits without crossing them. The final version of the movie included most of its comedic content. The film maintained its original tone while preserving its dramatic impact. The balance between these two elements enabled the project to achieve success because its humor remained strong during intense moments, which could have reduced its impact. That walked the line, but the next move rewrites the rules. Lone Star was two heroes. The main hero of Spaceballs, Lone Star, was designed as a mix of two well-known characters from Star Wars. Instead of choosing one style, the role blends the charm of a rogue pilot with the growth of a young hero. This gave the character a familiar feel, while still fitting the film's playful tone. Bill Pullman developed his character through the combination of these three personality traits. Lone Star displays two different personalities when he shows self-assurance and peacefulness through his experience with danger. The character displays his serious nature during crucial points in the story when he needs to develop as a person and take on his obligations. The character uses his balanced nature to switch between comedic and action scenes, which allows him to maintain a consistent performance throughout the story. The character design shows a combination of two different elements. The character uses his outfit and ship and character movements to show his two different sources of character inspiration. The information exists in plain view. The film establishes that the character should experience both emotions simultaneously instead of following the direct path of one particular emotion. The film uses this technique to create multiple parodies that connect to different themes through a single character. The parody becomes simpler to understand because Lone Star handles all the comedic elements by himself instead of sharing them with other characters. Mel Brooks played two roles. In Spaceballs, Mel Brooks did more than direct. He also stepped in front of the camera to play two very different characters, Yogurt and President Scroob. Each role served a separate purpose, giving him control over both the film's humor and its tone. Yogurt is the wise figure who explains the power of the Schwartz, but he also breaks the fourth wall to joke about money and marketing. The character looks calm on the surface, yet every line is filled with humor that points back at the film itself. It became one of the most memorable parts of the movie. Yogurt proved difficult for people to handle when they played with it. The costume and makeup created weighty discomfort, which restricted Brooks's ability to perform his role. The actor needed to take frequent breaks, which created production delays because he could work only for brief periods. The President Scroob character needed fewer physical demands for his performance, but required actors to display complete synchronization skills. The character uses his timing abilities with rapid reactions to deliver jokes successfully. Brooks performed both roles to maintain humor consistency throughout the movie, which he used to create his preferred film style. Theme song was rushed. The theme for Spaceballs did not come together early in production. It was created late, after most of the filming had already wrapped. Instead of spending months shaping it, the team had only a short window to deliver something that matched the tone of the film. Mel Brooks wanted a song that felt big, loud, and a little ridiculous. It had to sound like a classic space adventure theme, but also carry the humor the movie is known for. That balance was important, even with the limited time. The composer worked quickly to create a track that featured bold sounds and energetic, playful elements. The lyrics were adjusted along the way, with small changes added close to the end. The song developed a relaxed, adaptable quality that matched the film's visual style. The theme fits perfectly into the final cut. The score establishes the atmosphere from the beginning, while showing viewers what they will experience. The result appears finished, despite its quick development, because the clear direction proved that fast work can benefit creative work. The movie inside the movie. One of the boldest moments in Spaceballs comes when the characters suddenly watch the movie they are already in. It sounds confusing at first, but the scene plays out in a clear and funny way. They grab a copy of the film and start watching events unfold, even though those same events are happening to them at that exact moment. What makes the scene work is how direct it is. There is no long setup or deep explanation. The characters simply react, pause, rewind, and even skip ahead to see what happens next. It turns the idea of storytelling into part of the joke. Instead of following the story, they start controlling it. The public expressed concern about the idea because they felt it would be too unconventional for them to understand. The worry existed that people would fail to comprehend what occurred, while they would become confused about the main idea. The filmmakers chose to include the scene in the final cut despite its potential danger to the film. The film section became highly popular among audiences throughout the years. The movie demonstrated self-awareness through its decision to create a scene that broke established cinematic principles. The film reveals its complete production process instead of keeping its operational methods secret. The audience remembers the joke better because of its truthful presentation, which enhances its impact. George Lucas actually loved it. Before Spaceballs was released, many wondered how George Lucas would react. The film clearly makes fun of Star Wars, from its characters to its biggest moments. It had the potential to cause problems, but things went in a very different direction. Lucas watched the film and understood what it was trying to do. Instead of taking it as an insult, he saw it as a playful take on something he created. The humor was clear, but so was the respect behind it. That balance helped him accept the parody without issue. The support he provided extended beyond the endorsement of his work. Lucasfilm provided the production team with visual element guidance during their work. The team received space scene handling recommendations that their space scenes would maintain visual effectiveness. The team received unexpected support from the original source, which provided them with rare assistance. The production team used Native American language elements to create authentic Native American character dialogue. Brooks finished the film with greater confidence because of that support. The original story creators' approval allowed them to develop more comedic content. The situation developed into the most captivating aspect of the film's historical development: the sequel that never happened. Near the end of Spaceballs, a joke introduces a possible follow-up called Spaceballs 2: The Search for More Money. It sounds like a simple gag, but it quickly caught attention. Fans began asking about it as if it were a real project that might actually happen one day. Over time, the idea kept coming back. Mel Brooks was asked again and again if he would make a sequel. His answer stayed the same. He would only move forward if the original cast returned, especially Rick Moranis. The difficult situation made everything more complicated. Moranis took a break from his acting career because he wanted to spend time with his family. The project stopped making any progress when he left the team. The production team had initial talks and developed early concepts, yet those efforts failed to achieve sufficient progress to begin filming. The sequel maintained its connection to the original comedy throughout its entire duration. Fans used the title as a phrase that they repeated and which became their most memorable part of the story. The story appeared in social interactions and public gatherings, yet it never became an actual movie. The project changed from a sequel into an element that established the film's character because the humor element proved more enduring than any sequel ever could. A slow box office start. When Spaceballs first arrived in theaters, it did not create the kind of impact many expected. The idea was strong, and the jokes were bold, but the reaction was not instant. Some viewers were unsure how to take it. The humor moved fast, and the style felt different from other films at the time. A big reason was the constant comparison to Star Wars. Instead of seeing it as its own film, many people judged it against the original. That made it harder for the parody to stand on its own. For some, the jokes worked. For others, the tone felt too strange or uneven. The initial reviews showed divided opinions about the movie. A few critics praised the humor and creativity, while others felt the film was too silly or inconsistent. The film failed to control the box office results because it started without strong backing. The movie maintained consistent performance throughout its run, but it failed to achieve the success of major films which released during that time period. The movie's success depended on its release schedule. People watched parody films, but nobody wanted to see a film that mocked a well-known story at that time. The film required time for audiences because they needed to learn about its objectives. The film maintained its presence in theaters despite its initial weak performance. The movie continued to show in theaters, which allowed more viewers to see it. The combination of word-of-mouth publicity and repeat showings helped the audience understand the humor better. The initial silent distribution of the film turned out to be the start of a larger movement. From flop to cult classic. After its modest start, Spaceballs began to grow in a different way. It found a second life outside theaters, especially through home video and late-night television. These formats gave people the chance to watch it more than once, which made a big difference. With each viewing, more jokes started to land. The fast pacing and layered humor became easier to follow. Lines like "ludicrous speed" and "may the Schwartz be with you" began to stick. Fans repeated them, shared them, and kept the film alive long after its original run. The tone that once felt unusual slowly became part of its charm. Instead of trying to match serious science fiction, the film fully embraced its own style. That honesty helped it stand out. People began to enjoy it for what it was, not what they expected it to be. The audience size increased when more people discovered the show. The film transformed into something that people would watch multiple times. The audience started to use the show as their personal reference point, which they would repeat to others. The audience developed strong ties with the show, which created dedicated viewership for it throughout the years. The film began its initial release with low expectations, which eventually became a movie that stayed in public affection. The film did not rely on early success. The movie established its position through continuous audience backing and multiple viewings. The film demonstrates that initial weakness does not determine a movie's ultimate success, because it has become one of the best parody films from its era. "I'm a Mog" was ad-libbed. One of the most memorable lines in Spaceballs came from a moment that was never planned. During filming, John Candy added the line, "I'm a Mog, half man, half dog. I'm my own best friend." It was not written in the script, but it fit the character perfectly. Candy had a natural way of shaping his dialogue. He did not rely only on what was written. Instead, he added small details that made each moment feel more real. This line came out in a relaxed way, which made it sound natural and easy to follow. The crew noticed right away that the solution worked. The line presented itself as a simple, clear, and humorous performance that required no additional preparation work. The brief description of Barf's character in the sentence presented everything the audience needed to understand him. The strength of the product increased through its ability to remain present in people's thoughts. The film contains one of its most frequently quoted lines, which fans used to define the character throughout the movie. Fans repeated it, and it helped define the character long after the movie ended. A small change produces moments that demonstrate how much power it possesses. A single line, which they added during the filming process, created the character's permanent memory. The introduction became a permanent element that evolved from its original short function. The line created the character definition, which our primary character establishes for the entire role. That line defined the character, but our number one defines the whole role. Barf's suit nearly broke him. Bringing Barf to life in Spaceballs required more than a strong performance. The costume worn by John Candy was complex and difficult to manage. It was thick, heavy, and filled with moving parts that added to the challenge. The suit included a controlled tail, moving ears, and layers of fur that trapped heat almost immediately. Once filming started, the problem became clear. Long takes were hard to maintain, and the heat inside the suit built up quickly under studio lights. Between scenes, Candy often had to step away to recover. Crew members helped him cool down so he could continue. At times, they even sprayed him with water to prevent overheating. It was not just uncomfortable, it was physically demanding. The actor maintained his dedication to his performance throughout all circumstances. The actor maintained his precise timing while he performed his lines with effortless delivery. The character on screen appears to be light and energetic because he hides his physical effort behind the performance. The performance achieves its full impact through its contrasting elements. The audience sees a fun, expressive character, but behind the scenes, it required patience and endurance. Candy maintained his performance level despite facing challenging situations. The performance remained visible to the audience, but the struggle remained concealed. The work showed how complicated tasks become extra complicated because of their appearance, and how dedication transforms difficult times into exceptional roles. From wild improv to last-minute decisions that changed everything, Spaceballs proves that chaos can create something unforgettable. What started as a simple parody turned into a film packed with moments people still quote today. If you enjoyed this, drop a like, share your favorite fact in the comments, and subscribe for more deep dives like this. And don't miss the next video shown on your screen. There's another story waiting that might surprise you even more.